que os youtubers brasileiros sabem falar inglês? Bom, eu tô num evento cheio deles e é isso que a gente vai descobrir a partir de agora. Check it out. So, Débora, tell me about your channel.
My name is Débora. I'm a history teacher and I have a channel that focuses on history, especially Brazilian history, and tests to enter university, ENEM, military quests, etc.
And how did you learn English?
So I learned English as a child. I went to school and I learned English, and my family, even though my parents don't speak English, they knew it was important to me. So I started as a child and it became very natural to me, and also because there's English in our daily basis a lot, so in music, in movies, and series, so I got a little bit used to it. And knowing English gave me a lot of professional opportunities as well, so I'm very thankful for it.
I'm very impressed with your English! Oh my God, you speak English very well. And are you scared to speak English? No, right? Because it sounds very natural.
I confess that first I was shy because I had this misconceiving thought that
Misconceiving
thought that as I learned as a kid, I shouldn't have accent. But nowadays, I embrace my accent, I acknowledge it, and I'm fine with it. Because first I was very perfectionist, like if I know a lot of different words, but I want to speak them as a native, but I accepted that this makes us different and it's okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Eu ia mencionar que eu namorei gringo também, mas eu vou deixar isso.
And you were mentioning the fact that you were a little bit afraid to have an accent, a little bit ashamed, and how did you change your mind?
I was very insecure about my accent because I didn't want to sound foreign, but what changed my mind was that also when I was a kid, I also learned Italian from immigrants that lived in my town, and I speak it very good, just like I speak English very well, but I was scared because I didn't sound foreign. I sounded like a Brazilian that speaks another language. So when I visited Italy for the first time, I was traveling alone, I was very insecure. I didn't want to speak to natives because I thought that I would be unmasked and they would see that I'm a foreign, etc. But I realized that when I speak other people's languages, but with my special accent, people became very interested in why do I speak their language. They become very much more solicit to my thoughts. They are more understanding, more patient. They try to understand me better. They don't judge me. They appreciate that I'm doing an effort. So this changed my conceptions because first I was like, oh, I'm not going to speak perfectly. I'm going to have an accent. They will judge me. They will think that I'm bad. But something that we don't acknowledge is that native English speakers often, more than often, do not speak other languages. So for them, it's already impressive enough that someone speaks their native language plus English. So they are not in the place to judge us at all.
Exactly.
So like, if anyone judges my accent or don't understand what I say, wow, I can say it in 3 different languages. You can choose from them. So we cannot let this stop us from speaking, especially from speaking things wrong when we don't know the right thing. When I was learning other languages, my teachers used to say, no, even though you know it's wrong, just speak it. Put it outside because I will correct you along the way. The important thing is for you to lose it up. If you don't know a full sentence in English, speak a word in Portuguese, one of the words, but do it. Just
try to say it in other words. Try to even make gestures sometimes if necessary. Yeah.
The importance is to lose the fear of speaking and don't fear the judgment because people are not in place to judge us, and much on the contrary, they admire people that go outside their comfort zone to learn something new, to learn a whole new universe, and it opens a lot of opportunities at work, with friends, other families and friends that you can make along the way in your life, job opportunities. I'm so grateful to have been able to speak with all around the world with English, and it made my life very, very much better. É isso.
Nem vou falar nada, ela habilitou a bola.
Americano só fala inglês? Ah, vai ficar julgando meu sotaque? Não.
Arrasou. Pedro, tell us about your channel in English. What do you do in the channel?
So, I make science videos and I mainly talk about physics because it's my background. I also engage in other topics and things that I find interesting in general. I speak Portuguese in my channel, so it's for the Brazilian audience. English has been like a really good tool to help me understand the things that I want to talk about and like search for resources to make videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that would be my question. So how has English helped you become a better creator or in your career? I don't know.
What I will say right now is not because I have her by my side, but English is the most important skill I developed in my life. So all of the opportunities that arise and I was able to go and do amazing stuff and creative stuff, I think it was in large part due to being able to speak English and understand English.
And also to read, the papers you have to read to make your videos.
And also the scenario for making videos is so competitive. If I only read Portuguese books, I will be like 2 years behind
Limited,
the schedule. Yeah, reading books that just released right now or articles that just released right now without needing a translation or adaptation for Portuguese is really helpful in my job. So it's really, really, really important.
And you've traveled a lot, right? So YouTube
Yes.
has invited you to go places. Tell us about the last experience you've had.
I was at the UN General Assembly in New York. I mean, I was the only person there who could speak Portuguese, so I had to use English the whole day. And it was actually frightening to speak to all those important people and in a language that is not my native language. Yeah, these kind of opportunities wouldn't be able to, like, I wouldn't be able to go to any of them.
Yeah, and how did you feel that? Was it hard for you to understand the Americans, like talking to each other? Do you think it's different than, you know, just attending a class, an English class?
I always think that listening is easier, at least for me, than speaking.
Really? For
Yeah.
me, sometimes it's hard, you know? It's harder than speaking.
Yeah, I have problems to understand people when there's too much people speaking at once. So, but that's also in Portuguese. It's not exclusive to English. So yeah, I mean, when I go to these events and hear them speaking, they usually speak in a they are like speakers, like
Okay.
proper speakers. So
And then it's
they
easier to
speak in this easy to understand with this cadence that is like easier to understand. Yeah, it was really fun.
Okay, now what would you say to people who want to learn, they don't know where to start or what to do? What would you tell them?
Nowadays, English is a fundamental skill to have. It doesn't matter what job you have or what you want to do in the future. Because for anything you want to do or whoever you want to be, you need to be connected to the world. And you won't be connected to the world and be able to embrace all the opportunities that arise if you only speak Portuguese. So, if I'm not mistaken, only 3% of Brazilians speak
only
fluent
3%.
English. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's too low.
Yeah.
So look at how competitive you become only by speaking English.
To have this skill, right? Yeah.
That's bizarre. So
Yeah.
don't give up and don't be afraid to speak English.
And start now.
Yes, right now. Click the link in the description.
So here, tell me about your channel. What do you do in your channel?
So I'm a mother, and I doing vlogs of family life.
And you've lived abroad, right?
Yes.
And where did you live?
I live in France for 7 years.
Wow, that was
Yes.
a long time. And could you learn how to speak French?
I speak French
Really?
better than English. Huh?
Teach us something in French, please.
In French, for example, bon dia, bonjour,
Bonjour.
or senhora, madame. Easier, no?
Yeah, these are easy things. Amazing. And what's the importance of English in your career or in your life?
So I think when I started my career, the English was really important because I worked in a big company, HP, Hewlett Packard. So if I don't speak English, it was not possible.
To communicate with your
Yes,
your
was
mate.
really
Your
really
workmate.
good.
Sorry. Okay, good. Thank you. So this is Bruno. Bruno, tell us about your channel. What do you do?
I actually have 2 channels. On my first one, I try some kind of fast food delivery and some different restaurants. I try to order the same plate, but one is extremely cheap and the other one is extremely expensive. And sometimes the price do not matter. Actually, mostly the price do not matter. In my other channel, it's about technology. I simply love technology, gadgets, and everything that can make your life easier.
I love this kind of content, you know, this type of where you go to a restaurant and you buy the cheap plate and the expensive ones.
Yeah, do you know, when I began, it was very fun, but nowadays, I did this, I don't know, for like 3 years now, and it kind of lost the magic when you go to a new restaurant, because you think, okay, I'm not recording, I already tried out so many things. Yeah, it's nice, it's fun, but it's a bit too much now.
You keep thinking all the time.
Yeah.
And how did you learn English? Your English is very good.
Oh, thank you. I'm an addicted MMO player. I was.
Okay.
MMO.
Describe MMO.
It's massive multiplayer online games. So I used to play a lot of online games and I watch a lot of TV shows. I like to listen to audiobooks. but the conversational part, I think it was actually based on my gaming skills.
Really?
Yeah.
Lots of people say, oh, I learned English by playing video games. I said, come on, really?
Yeah, that's true.
So here
that's
we have
true.
an example.
Because I play a long time, so when I started, there was no easy way to translate. So you had to learn or you wouldn't progress in the game. And when I started playing together with other players, mostly of them were from other countries. So.
And do you have any tips for Brazilians who want to learn how to speak English as well as you can?
Oh, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I think you need to consume the most content you can in native English. And if possible, if you're gonna watch a movie, try to put English subtitles, try to speak to friends or anything where you can speak and listen to English as most as you can.
So what do you do on your channel?
I do like comedy, and comedy is about like sketch, like mom, son, daughter, and things like that, like relatable stuff that people enjoy watching. I think they enjoy watching, I hope so.
Oh my God, I'm really impressed with your English. How did you learn how to speak English so well?
I have a channel in English actually. Like,
Really?
I made the same videos I made in Portuguese in English, so I can double my money. I like that.
But then you have to translate jokes too. So tell me about
Yeah.
this challenge.
Yeah, it's pretty hard because some jokes are just not translatable at all. We just had to deal with it. Like, I try to always make the same videos, but sometimes I just can't, and I had to do different kind of videos.
But you think of jokes in English now? When
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in English first because it's easier to translate to Portuguese because people do it like in translated movies and things like that. So it's easier to dub to Portuguese than the other way around.
And then how did you learn English?
Playing video games actually.
I know, that was the same answer Bruno just gave me.
Like we love video games and we didn't have translations before, so we had to deal with what we got. Like,
Okay, amazing.
thank you so much for inviting me. I'm like, oh my god.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm really impressed with your English. Just one last question. What would you say to Brazilians who want to learn English, or they feel scared, they feel afraid to communicate, to...
Everyone
Speak up.
is afraid of something. Being afraid does not mean that you can't do it. You need to do it, but with the fear. There's no problem having fear. You just need to do it. Like, wake up and do English like 1 hour a day. In 6 months, you'll be really good at it.
So Átila, tell us about your channel. What do you do on YouTube?
Oh man, it's a rusty English that's not being spoken for a very long while.
Oh my God, but your English is amazing, come on.
I usually talk about science and education, science and health, while we were in the pandemics and everything else. But mostly nowadays, science, education and technology and how they interface and how we are learning through new technologies, by using or not using them, and the consequences and impacts that this has in our society.
And how did you learn English?
Playing video games.
I know, it's the third person who tells me the same.
Yeah, but it's in the 90s, so like I had a Nintendo. That's the most contact with English that I had. Then I entered in the grad school in the
Undergrad school.
Undergrad school.
Yeah,
Thank
there's
you.
a difference
Yeah.
in English.
Yeah.
So undergrad is graduação and grad school é pós-graduação.
Thank you. So as an undergrad, I had done some English lessons in school, the usual like prep for vestibular courses in an English school to do, but I entered through the advanced course already because of the English that I had learned before, so that I had a more formal education for 1.5 years. Then through the undergrad school and the grad school, I had to study in English everything. So that's when I began to read and to gather a better vocabulary. And then as a grad student, I started to do lab experiments that I had a long time to concentrate and do other things. It's before podcasts were mainstream and so much common. Then I started to learn to listen to audiobooks that were mostly in English by the time. And that's when I start to listen to fiction also. So there is another level of vocabulary. It's quite different from articles and academic papers that are usually more focused on the knowledge area. So they're actually, for me, easier to understand. Mostly written by non-English speakers, trying to focus on what you're explaining. So scientific papers are complex in knowledge, but have usually a simpler English for my understanding.
Right.
And then the audiobooks gave me the most of the broad vocabulary and examples and everything else. Then there is a 1.5 year living abroad, speaking in
Where did you
English in New Haven, that is a city between New York and Boston, while I was working in university there. And that's when I start to speak to lots of non-native English speakers and we gather similar problems. And I had very good friends that would help me to look. That's not how you pronounce this. That's not the context where you use this expression. I had a lot of literally translated expressions from Portuguese that I tried to use in English, and they would correct me and try this.
For example, I developed an experiment, and then you understand, and then you learn the word run. I ran an experiment.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and lots
yes.
of vocabulary that you learn. What's the importance of English in your career, not only as a YouTuber, but as a scientist?
Well, it's absolutely the basic and most necessary skill that I have. I have to understand knowledge. There is no time to wait for it to be translated in Portuguese. I've gone through my undergrad school, my biology course, going from sebo to sebo, like used bookstore to find the knowledge that I wanted to have. It's a very limited scope of knowledge that you gather when you're doing this. Then as a grad student, there is no other way to learn about what's happening in the world other than speaking English. Then there's everything else. So nowadays, I would say very small minority of content that I consume in Portuguese. Either podcasts, movies, mostly newspapers in Portuguese because it's very limited.
And you know why? And you know why your English is so good even though you haven't been speaking? Because you've been listening a lot.
All the time.
That's it. So you're immersed in the language all the time. So speaking is not that hard anymore.
Yeah, I came here today listening to an audiobook in English.
So
and
English
it's
is
all the
right
time.
here.
Yeah.
So tell me about your channel.
So it's a channel of arts. I do some drawings and I show a little bit of my another talents, like
You have
acting.
multiple talents, right?
Yeah.
Acting,
drawing, singing, and I write some poetry too
Wow, in Portuguese.
in Portuguese.
Have you ever tried in English?
No, I have never.
Amazing. How did you learn English?
I have always studied when I was a child. My mom always tried to involve
encourage you?
me,
To encourage you?
encourage me of learning because it's fundamental for everyone. When I was 13, I started in an English school and I studied for almost 5 years.
And do you like studying English? And
Yeah, it's amazing because when I go to another countries and I have some opportunities to speak in English that I could have never had if I didn't speak English at all.
okay. And what's the importance of English for your career or for your life?
Oh, it's important because every relationship that it's not on our country, we have to move. It's a universal language, so everyone will understand in France, in Portugal, in United States. My career. I am a content creator. Sometimes we are presented to people who are native, like in this event.
Right here we have people from
We have a
other
lot
countries.
of people of other countries, so I had the opportunity to speak with those people, and I wouldn't if I didn't speak in English.
One last question. Are you afraid to speak English?
A little bit, because I know that when I'm not practicing since I graduated in my school of English, I didn't practice as I was used to. I am a little bit shy and a little bit, how do you say, enferrujada?
Rusty. Yeah, your English is a little rusty.
Yeah, it's a little rusty to speak. I can understand a lot, but speaking is my biggest fear.
But you were speaking to a lot of people here and you're doing a great job. Your English is really good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Então espero que vocês tenham se sentido inspirados com tantas conversas em inglês. Vocês percebem que tem gente que fala com um pouco mais de facilidade que outras pessoas, mas o importante é que estava aqui todo mundo tentando e todo mundo falou bastante da importância de falar inglês para carreira, para vida, para relacionamentos. Então espero que você tenha se sentido inspirado e se ainda não começou a aprender inglês, então que comece agora. E eu tô aqui no YouTube para te ajudar no English in Brazil. Se inscreve e a gente se vê no próximo vídeo.